Heritage Sports Podcast. Ed Reed can sue the university. He can sue Bethune Cookman University on two different grounds. One, I get there's no contract signed. I get that. But the court looks at a whole bunch of different things. More than whether it's a contract between this person and that person and whether it's signed. Please stay with me. And the other one is there are different parties that they have gone on record, and I don't know why they've gone on record. Bethune Cookman officials have gone on record and said other parties could have been involved in us walking away from the contract. And I'm talking about Reggie Theus and I'm talking about Dr. Drake. They both went on programs and said, they had different conversations on how and what happened. So one, we got to back up. Bethune Cookman is not a public institution, meaning it's not a state school. So it's not going to be relegated to the procurement contracts or something like that of government of a governmental body. Governmental bodies, in order for you to actually do something or have something of merit and weight, it needs to be signed. That's not the case. Bethune Cookman University is a private institution, meaning it's a private person, meaning it's a person just like you or your granddad or your mom or your cousin. It's a private person. So not necessarily you don't need a signed contract. Reggie Theus and Ed Reed have gone on different programs being interviewed, Roland Martin or HBCU Game Day, and said the deal was basically done. It was not only in principle, all they had to do was basically sign the contracts. They needed to put ink to paper. The course is not only going to stop there, they're going to look at how the parties were acting during the time. They have both. Even the university put out a press release that said we have an agreement in principle, and they were working towards it actually being signed. So now they're going to look at the other actions. What are the other actions? Ed Reed was on campus. Ed Reed was able to be with his football team. They picked up trash. He was able to film on the campus. He was able to, and I understand they didn't want him to film on campus, but he still allowed him to. And then he was able to help the university in different capacities as far as construction that he showed and them clearing out a practice field and him going out and being able to contact recruits on Bethune Cookman's behalf. That looks like a contract, and the parties are acting like it. They're acting like Ed Reed was the coach. Now, Dr. Drake went on Roland Martin, and he essentially said, look, there were certain things we allowed him to do, certain things we didn't want him to do, but he did anyway, even without permission. Ed Reed said that. He said, well, look, I called people, they didn't answer, or sometimes they knew what I was doing. They knew I was going into the university and helping with that and contacting recruits. And then he had a recruiting weekend, and that they were in the middle of when they decided to walk away from the contract. So on each side, Ed Reed has a hell of a case to say, no, we had a contract and a deal. Look at all the actions. The parties were acting in principle, and parties were acting as this was a ratified deal. So you have that aspect of it. And I get it. Some people may not be like, man, whatever. The contract wasn't signed. They walked away, blah, blah, blah. The bottom line case of it, you have to take it case by case, but he was fired. Like, you know, we're walking away from the contract. We're going to nullify our verbal and our oral intentions and not do a written agreement based off of Ed's basically comments, erratic behavior, blah, 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 blah. That means he was fired. Okay. So when he was fired, that means your contract is now null, meaning they could have had a contract if all they didn't do was sign it. So get this. Ed Reed brings that kind of case to the court in Florida. Florida judge can look at that and say, you're right, let's give him specific performance. And what that means is the court system can force Bethune Cookman to make him be the head coach. And if you have looked at his videos, the theme, whether he's uploaded on IG, on Roland Martin, or wherever he is, wherever you see him appear, he has said, I am fighting to get back in the fight. Yeah, it sounds great. It's themey, it's catchy, whatever. But what he's saying behind his words to me, I'm going to fight to get back in the fight. Meaning, I'm fighting to be back the head coach of Bethune Cookman. So he was going to do everything possible. This could easily end up in a lawsuit. And I'm going to give you a specific timeline in 1 second. So he goes before a judge, says, I want specific performance, make me the Bethune head coach, Bethune Cookman head coach. Private institution, the judge can do that. A court system can do that. Say, nope, this was a ratified deal. We're going to keep all these things in the parameters. If they, especially if they had drafts of the contract, make that ratified, and then Coach Reed is back. Now, that's no guarantee. That could be the court can say, well, yeah, you're right. This was a done deal, but this isn't going to work. Bethune Cookman, you need to cut a check to Ed Reed. That could also happen. That's a real possibility because, our court system is designed to be more fair. Um, excuse me. In civil cases, you would hope it's designed to be more fair, not necessarily criminal justice system. But that's a whole nother video, a whole nother conversation. Moving on. That is a real possibility. Also, Ed Reed has been adamant that those videos that people saw of him on social media was not recorded by him, not put out by him. It was actually screen recorded and put out by another party. All right? Stay with me. So, with that being said, he didn't intentionally, you know, put this out there that Bethune Cookman's facilities were trash and da 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 da. This was something that was recorded by a private party and then put out. But since the university reacted that way and decided to move away from the contract, there is another big, strong case to say this is going to cause irreparable harm to me. I cannot get another head coaching job. He's already listed on his videos. He was offered the Jackson State job or could have been easily a Jackson State head coach. He was down the road on the Grambling head coach position that went to Hugh Jackson. Now, and it's reports are saying he could have been at Morgan State, but they decided to go with another coach on this one. All that means is he's going to be tangibly able to show the court that he had head coaching opportunities, and a judge just walking into this can easily say, "Oh, if he doesn't coach at Bethune Cookman after all of this has happened, he may not be able to coach ever again at the head coaching level. That's going to cause irreparable harm. So the Ed Reed can file a temporary restraining order and then move to a permanent injunction. And what I mean by that is he can force Bethune Cookman, the private institution, from hiring a football head coach until this is sorted out. That's he has a very strong case for that to happen. It's a high bar. I'm not saying he's meeting that bar, but he can actually have that happen. So the timeline is important. Dr. Drake has put out a press release on behalf of Bethune Cookman University, and it said they are looking to hire a new football head coach within 7 to 10 business days. So Ed Reed has 7 to 10 business days to figure out whether he wants to file a temporary restraining order in addition to his lawsuit. Now, I'm not telling him what to do. I guarantee you this is not something that has just come across his desk. I am quite sure this possibility. Ed Reed's a millionaire. Okay, he's a Hall of Fame player. He has lawyers that he's always talked to or had along his journey. He definitely is thinking about filing a lawsuit. So this is not breaking news, all right? I'm just giving you the pathway on how he can do it. Okay, so let's go to the next part where I was talking about Dr. Drake and Reggie Theus going on different interviews, and I just don't understand. I don't know if they weren't advised about it or whatnot, but specifically Dr. Drake, he went on Roland Martin and he was like, yeah, it was my decision, even though he heard from sponsors, and one of the sponsors was Disney, and Disney wasn't saying, hey, you. He made a big point saying Disney did not say, please, don't stand by this person. But he said it basically went into his mind frame, his thought process on, okay, well, they didn't come out and say it, but they're asking, what are you going to do about this person's outburst? And they're talking about Coach Reed's videos of being just curse filled yelling and calling the facilities trash. One of their biggest sponsors is calling Dr. Drake on the phone. You can't tell me that they won't look at that as torturous interference with a contract. Okay, there's a contract that's essentially done that they are calling about, and then within however many days, that contract is no longer there for Coach Reed. That is a easy, easy like case for a plaintiff, because a plaintiff's attorney to make before the court to say no, we need to go to trial on this. We're going to have a jury trial, and honestly, it I I think he has a strong case, and I mean I've been to me I want to be fair to Coach Reed and the university. You have a private university that is acting like a contract is done. They are talking to sponsors about their current employee that they say they don't have a contract for, and then all of a sudden they don't ratify this contract. It's not looking good when it goes before a jury, or it doesn't look good before it goes into a court of law, because that's the classic example. So I'm not saying who he's going to sue in addition to, but as far as the party, the employer, Bethune Cookman, that does not look good. It just does not. So it's really important for people to understand that you can't interfere with a contract, or a lawsuit can happen. So Reggie Theus is talking, and he's like, "Yeah, there's no shot that I think it was the HBCU game day. He said there's no shot that Coach Reed is coming back." In that frame, it how can I say, contradicts Dr. Drake for him saying it was my decision. To me, that's saying no. I'm a part of that too. Even though I found Ed and I extended the contract, or I negotiated with his representatives over the contract to be with the university as a college football coach. I'm now saying he has no chance. Dr. Drake also brought up different members of the board. Reggie Theus brought up different members of the board, and I'm not saying they don't have cause. To me, they have cause to walk away from the contract because of how it acted. But that lets you know there was more people involved in the decision. That means it wasn't just one person or the other. That's something they're going to be able to articulate in court very, very plainly, very, very simply to a arbiter, a judge, to say no, we this contract was interfered with, and they pulled the contract. So Ed has legs on this. This is not a slam dunk case for the university. It's not a slam dunk case for Ed Reed, but it's something that's going to get to trial. I mean, I think that's where we're headed, because if you see Ed Reed's videos, he is adamant he wants to coach. That's his kids over there. He wants to coach. He wants to fight, to get in the fight for these young kids. And there's only one remedy left. They stayed in Daytona all that weekend trying to convince them. They asked for a conversation on Roland Martin's interview. They said no. They said no. They said no. The only other remedy, I mean, there's the student protest and things of that nature, but you want to talk about how things are handled in this country, it's the legal remedy. So the next logical step is a lawsuit where Ed Reed is filing against Bethune Cookman University for a number of different grounds. So I'm not going to specifically enumerate each and every one of them, but I've given you some of the grounds here to understand when this happens, or if it does happen, you'll know what the case is about. Hope you all enjoyed it, and we'll monitor the situation even more going forward. And Heritage Sports.